This is Well Australian Women. Welcome to your full body health check. I'm Claire Murphy, your resident journo, who will ask you the nosiest questions about your most private parts.
And I'm Dr. Mariam, the person who will have those answers to those questions and hand you the tools on how you can take that to your own doctor.
Today we're going to be talking about body longevity. Now, before you start thinking about that guy the Kardashians spent time with this season, what's his name, Brian Johnson? We are not talking about tech bro billionaire longevity, and this is not about how we look either. We're talking about all of us women just trying to live our best lives without becoming like frail old ladies who break and fall and can't remember anything. We'll also check in with Bryony for a quick consult today. She has a really serious issue that is absolutely life-threatening, and she knows that it can be fixed. She just can't convince her doctor to actually do the fixing part. But next, I have a shaving tip for you, Mariam.
Yes.
This is going to change the way you handle your razor. It is time to go to med school.
Welcome to med school.
We are discovering some crazy things about our bodies as we do research into this podcast, which I've mentioned in previous episodes has completely messed up my algorithms. I get served some pretty whack stuff these days, but we do come across some really interesting handy hints sometimes too, which is what I came across this week. Have you ever, like when you've gone to shave your legs, soaked for a bit first in the bath, or done it as like the last thing you do in the shower, like after you've done your everything top to toe kind of business? Well, I found out that when you soak in the bath or take a long shower, your skin essentially swells because the outer layers do absorb that water. But what that means is that the hair is essentially getting pulled back into the follicle as your skin expands outwards.
Makes sense, yeah.
So when you go and shave at the end, when your skin is all swelly and plump and full of lovely moisture, you're actually shaving less of the hair, which is why you might find after you've dried off and like an hour or so later when your skin has gone back to normal, you've already got stubble. So don't do that. Do it the first thing you do when you get in the bath, or the first thing you do. I mean, gross in the bath because now you're floating around with a bunch of your little shaven hairs.
And don't do it on dry skin either.
No.
I've done that. Like, you know what? I've just like rushed in and there's just like a patch of hair. And,
because then you get like that weird rash.
Yeah.
It's not very nice.
Hurts.
Also, if you do it after a long soak or a long shower, it increases your risk of ingrown hairs and razor burn. So the moral of the story today is dunk quick, shave first, get it over and done with. Also, Mariam, though, I do understand that the quality of your razor is of concern here because you can actually catch like some nasty stuff from your razor, right?
You sure can. So they can be a breeding ground for bacteria and infections. Using a rusty razor increases your risk of infections.
Oh, I will admit I have done that before.
Yeah. And they can like compile a lot of nasty things. And the one thing we think of are staph infections. So if your razor is starting to look a little vintage, it is time to replace them. So in summary, quick dip, sharp razor, smooth sailing, or you don't even need to shave.
That's so true. Why are we even bothering with hair removal in this
Exactly, especially as
day
we're
and
coming
age?
into winter.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
Sasquatch me is about to emerge. Just you wait. Okay, shave first, non-rusty razor people, all right? It is checkup time. We are talking longevity today.
It's time for the checkup.
We know that women in general live longer than men, although with our friends, the billionaire tech bros that we mentioned earlier, all life hacking and trying to live forever, maybe that will change somewhere down the track. But as we sit today, women live on average to around 85 years of age compared to men at 81 here in Australia. That does differ where you go in the world. But Mariam, there is a big difference between living until you're 85 and like living until you're 85, right? There are so many things we can do to make sure that our bodies hold up better.
Yep. It's not just about adding years to your life. It's about adding life to your years. And while women may outlive men on paper, we're aiming for more quality years, not just more candles on the cake. So,
I mean, candles on the cake is nice because it comes with cake, but yes.
Yeah, but what's the point of making it to 85 if we can't remember where we put our dentures? So I have a simple formula for vibrant aging. Number one is moving your body. So regular physical activity, helping you to stay mobile, strong and independent. As we age, variety is what's key. So you want to be doing moderate aerobic activity, like whether walking, dancing, swimming, but you also want to be doing strength training. That's really important and that's to support the muscle and bone health. The second thing is eating smart and enjoying your food as well. So you want a balanced diet, rich in proteins and veggies, healthy fats as well. As you get older, the way your body processes alcohol is very different. So it can take longer to recover.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when you're younger, you can have a big night out and you're over it in a day.
Yeah.
Now, one glass of wine and it's like, I'm out for 3 days. It's not even worth it.
Not worth it. And then prioritizing your mental well-being. That's really important. So your mental health is just as important as your physical health. You want to be practicing mindfulness, even if it's just a couple of, minutes a day, spending time with your loved ones, staying mentally active with new hobbies and group activities as well. Talk to your GP about a mental health care plan if needed. There is support out there for you. We know that people with depression and anxiety can have a reduced quality of life, and we want to get on top of that as soon as possible. Social connection is so crucial, especially as we age. It improves mood, memory, and reduces loneliness, which we know is a silent killer. Sleeping, that's so important as well. So we're aiming for 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Sleep changes with age, so you're more likely to experience disrupted rest as you age. And if you're struggling to get good quality sleep, please speak to your GP. And staying proactive with your health, going in to see your GP often for health checks. Don't wait till you become unwell. It's about preventative care. And then getting ahead of things. I do like to have these conversations with people early. They can be uncomfortable, but it's very important. So things like an advanced care directive, having a power of attorney, and, what does life in the future look for you? And just having that conversation early so when things do happen, it doesn't take you by surprise.
Look, having that conversation is so vital, and I saw this play out in front of me. A friend of mine's dad went in for a procedure and ended up having an aneurysm whilst he was in hospital, so they were able to save his life, but he was not able to live the life that he had before he'd had that aneurysm. He had power of attorney in place. He had an advanced care directive in place. So for my friend who's an only child, she was able to handle all of that for him and with him during that process. He wasn't an old man. He was only in his late 60s.
Yep.
So if you don't have these things in place, it's really important to have that conversation. I've tried having it with my parents. It is a no-go zone right now, so we'll keep working on it, but,
They're so important.
Yeah.
And it's about kind of ensuring that you're treated with the dignity and care that you deserve in the way that you want to if these things were to happen.
Yeah, 100%. Miriam, how do we go about putting a plan in place like this, whether it's for ourselves, if we're getting a bit older, or for aging parents, for example, to make sure that we are aging as best that we can?
Yeah. I think as a patient, you have a duty to be proactive as well. We can only do so much when you come to visit us. There are a lot of comprehensive health checks that GPs can do as we start to get older, but we need you to get to the door first. And as I mentioned, it's really important not to wait till you're unwell. These preventative health checks are important because we can pick things up and prevent them from progressing. And that's what we want. So we want you to go in frequently. We're not saying go in every week, but going every now and again to make sure everything is up to date and that we're getting on top of things before they become a problem. So it might be helpful if you're going to see your GP, you're saying something like, look, I'd like to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to age well, both physically and mentally. Can we put together a bit of a plan to support that? So that's quite important. And if you're living with a chronic disease, you'd be eligible for something we call a chronic disease management plan, and that gives you access to bulk billed visits with allied health providers, so linking you in with services like physiotherapists, exercise physiologists, podiatrists, all those sorts of things. And it's good because then you start to establish this team around you and we can all liaise with you to make sure that you're on top of all your conditions. As you're getting older, try to find a good GP that you're happy with, who knows you really well. Maybe find someone who's not on the verge of retirement, because that does happen, unfortunately.
It's happened to me. Yeah. I'm so sad, but yes.
Someone who's going to be with you for the long haul, who knows you really well, who's able to pick things up, who is on top of your medication list, and who you can have these active conversations with.
Yeah, good advice. All right, moving on the way, we're going to hear about Bryony's life-threatening condition. She is desperately trying to get her doctor to fix, but just because she hasn't had babies yet, they are not letting her. But next we speak to Gene House for Women's Health Endocrinologist Lead Dr Sonia Davison to see how we can make sure that these bodies of ours hold up the best they can till the very, very end. Sonia, thank you so much for joining us and helping us out with this today. I have been seeing this one video everywhere at the moment that says that women who exercise regularly from midlife onwards have an up to 90% reduction in Alzheimer's compared to women who don't. And if you are going to get it, because there are people who are genetically predisposed to it, that it will in fact hit you some 11 years later than it would have had you not exercised. How much of this is true and proven?
There's a lot of different studies out there with exercise and brain function or cognitive function and dementia. I think that particular study is being amplified a little bit. I think it refers to a Swedish study of over 1,400 women who were started to be studied when they were 38 to 60 years in 1968. They followed them up for 44 years. But what they found was those who had high fitness, there was a reduction in the risk of getting Alzheimer's by 88%, not 90. Now,
Oh, so close, but
close,
right. Yeah.
close, but it was high fitness compared to medium fitness. And I think that there are very few of us who can claim to really having an element of high fitness. The study did suggest there was a delay to the onset of dementia of about 9.5 years, and that's amazing. But it's a lot to ask someone at 38 or midlife to maintain high fitness just for that purpose. But if they can do it and they're up for it, I just don't want people to get disappointed when they try and aim for these really big goals and then have the realities of modern life, lots of other challenges, and then get disappointed in themselves that they can't. I think on any level, any amount of exercise that you can do, as long as it's good, making the heart pound exercise, making you sweat a bit, doesn't have to be going to a gym or a program. It can be just a brisk walk. It can be dancing. I think just make it real for the person and put an effort in. I think that's what I encourage women to do.
Right. So you don't have to become an elite athlete. Maybe just get moving.
Some of us can become elite athletes. It's brilliant.
That's true. I did see a video of a 90-something-year-old woman who's like deadlifting now and like putting the bros in the gym to shame. So it's not impossible.
Can be done. It's about balance, I think. Trying, putting in an effort.
I'd like to get your take on this too, because there's also a lot of foods that are being pushed that are supposedly beneficial for our brain health in order to avoid dementia and Alzheimer's. I've been reading specifically about fish, which we've always been told is really good for our brain health. Berries, red and purple sweet potato, green vegetables and herbs, and beetroot in particular seem to be consistently on this list. What do we know about those particular foods and their potential to prevent things like dementia?
We started really getting interested because we saw that there were regional differences with regard to diet. For example, a Mediterranean diet, we saw that there were various health benefits to that diet, and that is typically tendency to have fish and seafood, grains, vegetables, fruit, and olive oil. So we thought when we looked at those studies, those people actually did better with regard to healthy aging and dementia. Green leafy vegetables, plant-based diet, avoiding processed foods, avoiding lots of carbohydrate, avoiding lots of red meat. But again, it's everything in balance, everything in moderation, and trying to do something that will work for your life rather than not trying to achieve something that's really, really difficult. But again, yes, I'm all for all of those foods that you mentioned. Berries, it's interesting with regard to fruit. They said berries rather than other fruit. And definitely when you're coming to dementia prevention, those foods tend to be more useful compared with high saturated fats, processed foods, takeaway foods, all those sort of things.
All right, let's talk about perimenopause, because we know that a lot of change is going on in a woman's body with hormones and various other things at that time, but we also change where we store our fat. And that is something that people are looking into as potentially helping with body longevity, because we start to store it around our tummies, in and around our vital organs there. So what is the problem with it being around our tummies rather than being hips and thighs and bums where we would normally? And what's the benefit of making sure we limit that?
We know that when there's a higher waist circumference, and for women, there's a sort of cutoff of 88 centimetres. For men, it's 102 centimetres. We know when there's a higher waist circumference, even with a healthy weight for height, so that's really interesting as well, that there tends to be an increase in visceral fat. So that's fat around the organs, such as the liver, inside our abdominal cavity. We know that that fat is higher in insulin, and we know that there are certain risks associated with that, such as higher blood pressure, higher diabetes risks, and higher cardiovascular risks, so risks of heart disease and stroke, hypertension. So it's interesting that that one measure, the waist circumference, if we can actually get it to less than 88 centimetres, statistically, we're going to do much better with regard to healthy aging and avoiding, well, when you consider women, 32% of us die of a heart attack or stroke. So if we could get that slightly skinnier waist, that would be very useful.
I'm also hearing a lot of rumblings about fasting, Sonia, and it comes up in very different ways. There are people who are more extreme about it. There's people who are intermittently fasting, but there's a lot of academics I've realized who've been talking about this now too, who are in this space. And they talk about the fact that it can delay aging, prevent illnesses by, I don't know, there's a lot of terminology around it, resetting metabolism, cleaning out cellular debris. I don't fully understand what it is that is promoting. But where do you stand on fasting and its ability to help us age a little better?
Well, the studies are pretty convincing, and there's lots of different ways of fasting. We've seen the 5-2 diet, the 16-8 diet, and all sorts of ways of doing this. I think the important message is to just not be very extreme with regard to this. Do it in a safe and healthy way. Don't walk around like a zombie feeling starved the whole time. Just
Don't pass out. Yeah.
do not pass out, especially when you're driving. So yes, there is some good data that it's actually good for the body to fast for a bit, not for a long time. It's good for our insulin levels. It's good for anti-inflammatory. It's good for our microbiome. It's good for cleaning up inflammation, and it's certainly good for waist circumference, for weight, and it's good for reducing our risks of metabolic things such as hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol, etc. Many of my ladies are doing a bit of intermittent fasting. You'll find from midlife on that you probably have to do something like reduce carbohydrates, reduce portions or calories, or do intermittent fasting, because what this research has shown us, that the women who do not gain weight around the time of menopause are doing at least 60 minutes of exercise daily. And that's a lot of exercise for many of us to do. But in terms of getting it all right, there is a strategy there, and one strategy might be the intermittent fasting. But again, do it in a safe way.
I have laughed a little bit about the tech bros during this episode, but that is something that a lot of them also seem to be adhering to. Some of the extreme ones that we talked about, like there's one guy who has like one meal at 11 a.m. and that's it every single day, and he eats the same thing every single day. So, like, that's extreme. But if you can maybe have your last meal before a certain time of the afternoon rather than having 3 meals spread out across, a vast swathe of the day, maybe that's a better way of looking at it, you think?
I think do it in a way that you can live your life. You
Mm.
don't want to be cranky and angry with people. You don't want to struggle with your brain not working if you're working. So it's got to be in a way that's right for you. And even I think like the 5-2 diet, doing it for 2 days a week, and I wouldn't suggest running them together, but a Wednesday and a Saturday, if you can do it with your life and your work, I think that's a more gentle way to do it. Just don't, again, give yourself really difficult goals that you'll feel disappointed when you can't sustain it.
Yeah. I also recently saw a video of a woman who was giving a Melbourne radio host a training session on some of the best exercises to do to avoid bone density issues like osteoporosis. And she's big on stomping. And her explanation was that you need to exercise in a way that shocks the bones a little so they continue to build and stay strong. Between that and lifting heavy things, that's the other advice I've been seeing everywhere at the moment. Are those the best exercises when you do reach middle age and beyond to make sure you stay strong and your bones stay strong as you age?
We do have a rapid decline in bone density from the time of midlife in women, more so in women than men. And there's a huge amount of bone thinning and osteoporosis. And a quarter of women will die in the year after having a hip fracture, which is really bad statistics, isn't it? Yes, stomping, Greek or Israeli dancing, Zumba, something that's actually using your skeleton in the upright form. A bit of jogging won't hurt.
I saw a group of women who literally jump up and down on the spot.
It can be skipping. It's pretty cheap to get a skipping rope. It can be
Mhm.
hopping. Hopping is dangerous because if you're on one foot, you might stumble. And the other thing is weight bearing. So weights are very important. I did a webinar on musculoskeletal health at menopause recently, and in my research for doing it, I found that after menopause you lose 0.6% muscle per year. And I
Mm.
got up and straight after doing it, I did Zumba because I thought I'm not going to lose that 0.6%. So we do need to be doing that is some sort of, I sort of call it a jumpy or jiggly activity where we're actually putting pressure through our feet. If you can stomp, I mean, I stomp around sort of in a
Unintentionally?
to get things done. Busy women might stomp a bit to get things done. It works for me. But I love dancing, so I'll do a Zumba at home. I just use my Nintendo system. It's free, it's there, it's easy. I can do 15 minutes or an hour or whatever. I just make the most of my time to do it. And the other thing is the weights. So we're learning more and more that we need to do some resistance training. There are some great programs out there that are using weights now, but you can do weights at home. There's a beautiful information page on exercise for bone at Healthy Bones Australia. It's a beautiful exercise guide with pictures of women in black exercise gear showing how to do the exercises, showing how to do it healthily, because we just don't want women getting an injury, especially if they're older and have existing injuries, trying to do that wonderful exercise for their bones.
Can you actually reverse osteoporosis though once it starts?
We can gain bone density. So osteoporosis is when we've lost a lot of bone density and the bones become brittle, and with minimal trauma we can fracture. So you
Mm.
certainly can gain bone density. It's hard to go from osteoporosis to normal, and all sorts of things are important. Adequate calcium in diet, adequate vitamin D, weight-bearing exercise, not smoking, not drinking to excess, trying to moderate other things in life, healthy height for weight, or healthy weight for height. You can't change your
Can't change your height. Well, you can, but it's extreme. Yes.
Just keeping a balance again. And sometimes we will need osteoporosis medications. Sometimes we will need hormone therapy, and that's an individual decision as well. There are lots of pros and cons to that. That's another discussion with you, I
Mhm.
suspect. But we can all do something for our bones, and it's brilliant to go from osteoporosis to osteopenia, which is mild thinning and can be normal in some age groups. It is hard to go to normal bones, but we can definitely change our bone density and work on it.
Can we talk about ovaries for a second? Because we know that it's such a big shift in a woman's life when you essentially start running out of eggs, you start losing your estrogen, hormone window of chaos occurs. We're in perimenopause, lots of different symptoms come on board. But there's a lot of talk now, some research is being done into how to extend the life of your ovary, not for reproductive purposes, but just for health purposes. Do you know where we're at with that? Because we know that the ovary does play a big role in us aging, but is it the ovary or is it other things?
We're not very far along. And what we do know, for example, smokers have an earlier menopause. So that's obviously one thing we could avoid. Our real model here is premature menopause. That's menopause before the age of 40 years. We know when those women are sort of robbed of the estrogen they were meant to have until average age 50, 51, that they do have a higher rate of cardiovascular disease, that's heart attack and stroke, cognitive decline, dementia, and also osteoporosis and fracture. So that's our model. We know when we give those women back estrogen, if we're able to, not all can have it, that we actually reverse those things. And also we know in those women who've undergone the early menopause that their mortality is increased if we don't give hormone therapy. So that is our model, and people have looked at other things. For example, people have said that if you have a high carbohydrate load, you might have an earlier menopause. If you have moderate alcohol rather than extreme alcohol use, you might have a later menopause. So there are some things that can help us a little, but it's possibly only going to help you 1 or 2 months or maybe a year. The median age of menopause in Australia is 51 to 52. It's set, it's genetically programmed. You will do what your identical twin has done or what mum has done mostly. Not everyone does this unless something else happens like surgery, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, etc., or those sort of insults. Yes, we're not really there yet, but I think the main message is if you want to maintain ovarian function and maybe extend your menopausal life a little bit, being healthy, well, exercise, don't be too extreme, just do what our body was meant to do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Davison. That was a great conversation about little ways to make our later lives a little bit healthier, less painful, and a ton more remembery, which is very helpful. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, with what she said, I think I'm in the safe zone. I'm Lebanese, so I'm already on the Mediterranean diet. And I just
not like us Irish potato eaters. Okay.
Just need to make sure that I've got a Lebanese wedding every weekend and do the dabke, which won't be hard. I've got thousands of cousins. So I also wanted to add with the dementia prevention, there are a few other things that we really want to focus on for dementia prevention. And that's, sleep quality, cognitive stimulation, so doing those crosswords, Sudokus, and that lifelong learning to keep that mind active. Just as crucial is social connection. That's really, really important.
Go have cups of teas with your girlfriends.
Or find a hobby, group activities, whatever it might be. That's really, really important for dementia prevention.
This is really interesting because we're having this discussion like it should be for 80-year-old ladies, right?
Yeah.
But to be honest, this should be something we're thinking about, especially if you're in that window of like late 30s into your 40s and 50s. They call it the menopausal window of chaos. Your hormones are all doing crazy stuff and you lose estrogen. This is when these changes start to really affect your ability to age well and your longevity. So we should be having these discussions and putting these things in practice like from your 30s onwards, right?
Exactly. You want to implement these changes earlier on, make it a part of your lifestyle. If I was to have a conversation with a 75-year-old and say, you need to be exercising this much and you need to be doing A, B, and C, it's much harder to implement than someone who's been doing it since they've been in their 30s.
Yeah, get onto it, gals. Next, it's quick consult time. Bryony is really unhappy with advice that she's been given. She wants to know if every doctor she goes to is essentially going to tell her the same thing about a life-threatening issue she has, which they've said they're not going to allow treatment for until she's had babies.
The doctor will see you now just through here to consult room 1.
If you have a question for Dr. Mariam, she's a bloody legend.
I sure am.
She's also answering questions for me, which I'm DMing her on a Saturday night about my iron deficiency.
Lots of rashes. No, I'm joking.
I did tell her that she has like complete permission to tell me to piss off if I'm asking her questions on the DMs on a Saturday night. If you do have a question, though, you can shoot it through to the waiting room. You'll find a link to that in our show notes. And if you do it that way, it is completely anonymous. So if you have a question that you don't want to put your name to, which we totally understand. Okay, Mariam, please do your thing.
Thank you for waiting. How can I help you?
In the consult room today is Bryony. She has a problem she thinks she knows the answer to, but cannot find someone to help her get there. This is what she wrote. I want a hysterectomy, but my new GP said I couldn't. I have fibroids that bleed so bad that once my husband found me passed out on the bathroom floor from blood loss and had to call an ambulance. I've been having regular transfusions and have also had several ablations to help, but I can't keep going like this. Sometimes I can't leave the house because I'm bleeding so much. My GP says because I don't have any children yet and I'm not even 30, he won't refer me, saying it's also something that affects my husband, so he needs to be on board too, even though I've told him he's fine with it because it means I'll be able to live a better life. Is this something I just need to find another doctor about, or will all GPs say the same thing? I'm 29. Mariam, I've had friends who've had to deal with fibroids. It is absolutely debilitating if you've got really bad fibroids, and they've since had procedures that have fixed that, including a hysterectomy. So in this case, when we're talking about a GP who says not until you have babies, is this a social issue or is this a medical issue?
Okay, so I'll just start by explaining what fibroids are for the listeners. So they're non-cancerous growths in the uterus that can vary in size and location and number. They can be as small as a pea and larger than a watermelon in some cases. Now, I am furious hearing
I can see you gritting your
I'm
teeth.
so angry hearing this, and I'm so sorry for her experience because that is just not acceptable. Essentially, when I have a female present with bleeding, we always order some imaging and it will tell me about fibroids. It will tell me fibroids, this is the cause. When we have the diagnosis, my approach is I sit the patient down. I go to this website called Ask for UFE, and it has this beautiful printout which has all the treatment options and it goes through the pros and the cons. I print it out, we go through it together, I let them take it home, have a think about it, and they come back and we have a further conversation about what they want to do. When I hear stories of women being refused referrals or treatments, like my blood boils. If a patient is given all options, including the pros and cons and risks associated with the treatment and the fertility implications, and she makes a decision, that's hers, and it's our duty as doctors to respect patient autonomy. She's clearly symptomatic. She required a referral like yesterday, and she needs a full workup. And she shouldn't be denied that opportunity because she has a GP who has some belief structure about fertility. So it's time to say bye, Felicia, to this new GP. You deserve to feel better and you deserve to have a treatment plan that aligns with what you want. And I'm so, so sorry that this is an experience that many, many, many females are still experiencing. It's just unacceptable.
Is this a case of, and something that I've learned from you, is that you need to seek a GP like you seek a specialist, that GPs also have their own specialties. So if she can find a GP who specialises in women's health, that is definitely a good step towards getting the result that she's after.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you'll get that information generally on the website in their bio. They'll be like, Dr. Mariam is a GP who loves women's health and pediatrics. So you see that and you're like, okay, I think this GP is going to be right for me.
Okay, Bryony, it looks like you're on the hunt for a new doctor. Good luck, friend, because it sounds like you really needed that yesterday.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Bye, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us on Well today. Don't forget, if you do have questions or any concerns or some feedback even, we'd love you to rate and review us in your favourite podcast app.
5 stars,
5
please.
stars, please. Because it does allow us to get into more people's ears, which is the idea of this. Also, too, if you want to send through a query or a question, email it well@mamamia.com.au, leave us a voice note or an anonymous story. You can find them in your show notes. If you want more info too, sign up to the Old Well newsletter. There is stacks of really great stuff on there from all of us to learn from. Extra stories, fact sheets, expert advice. Make sure you get into that too. Next week, we are answering all your questions about weight loss drugs, body longevity. Get your questions in, people, ASAP before your time runs out. Remember, again, the advice that you've heard here today, it's general. It may not suit you 100%, so make sure you speak to your own GP or your own health specialist about these things. Get that info that is correct for you. If you're like Bryony, go find yourself a new GP if it is not working out for you. And of course, we will see you for your appointment right here this time next week.
Bye-bye.
Well is produced by me, Claire Murphy, and our group executive producer, Georgie Page, and senior producer, Sasha Tannock, with audio production by Scott Stronach.